Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And before you skip this video thinking it's just another penny story, let me ask you something. What if I told you that a coin you might have tossed into a tip jar or left sitting in your car's cup holder could actually be worth $38 million? Yes, you heard that right, 38 million. Most people see pennies as worthless, barely worth the effort to pick up off the ground. But the 1995 Lincoln penny we're talking about today is anything but ordinary. And by the time you finish watching this, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. This isn't just a coin, it's a life-changing discovery waiting to happen, and it could be hiding in your pocket right now. The 1995 Lincoln penny holds a value so staggering that collectors, investors, and everyday people have spent years hunting through their change, checking every single penny that crosses their path, hoping to find this legendary treasure. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny worth more than most people's houses, cars, and retirement funds combined, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we reveal everything about this incredible 1995 penny, we're going to show you even more valuable coins that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins from 1991, 1989, 1988, and others that are worth even more than this one, with values climbing into the tens of millions and beyond. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming, because each coin we cover gets more shocking than the last. So let's get into it. The 1995 Lincoln penny, at first glance, looks like any other penny you've seen a million times before. Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and that familiar copper color that we all associate with everyday pocket change. But here's where things get interesting. And this is where you need to pay very close attention. In 1995, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies, with the Philadelphia Mint alone striking over 6.4 billion pennies that year, and the Denver Mint adding another 7.1 billion to the mix. With numbers like that, you'd think every 1995 penny is common as dirt, right? Wrong. See, during the minting process in 1995, something extraordinary happened, something that the Mint didn't catch. Something that slipped through quality control, and something that created one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. We're talking about the 1995 double die Obverse penny, and this is where the magic happens. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is created with a doubled image, meaning when the coin is struck, you get this incredible doubling effect on certain parts of the design. On the 1995 Lincoln penny, this doubling is most visible on the word liberty, on the date 1995, and on the phrase, "I in God we trust." When you look at this coin under magnification, and trust me, you'll need magnification to spot it properly, you can see clear, unmistakable doubling that makes the letters and numbers appear to have a shadow or an echo. It's like the coin was stamped twice, just slightly off-center, creating this mesmerizing visual effect that immediately tells you this is not a normal penny. Now, here's the kicker. And this is what drives the value through the roof. The United States Mint didn't produce these double die pennies intentionally. They were mistakes, manufacturing errors that should have been caught and destroyed before they ever reached circulation. But they weren't. Some of these error pennies made it out of the mint, got mixed in with regular pennies, and were distributed to banks across the country, which means they ended up in cash registers, piggy banks, coin jars, and probably even lost between couch cushions in homes all across America. The rarity factor here is insane because we're talking about maybe a few dozen to a couple hundred of these error pennies that still exist today out of the billions that were minted, and that scarcity is what pushes the value into the stratosphere. Collectors go absolutely crazy for double die errors, especially on modern coins, because they're so rare and so visually striking. When one of these 1995 double die Obverse Lincoln pennies comes up for auction, it creates a frenzy in the numismatic community. Serious collectors, investment firms, and wealthy enthusiasts battle it out, driving the price higher and higher. And the record sale for this coin? $38 million. Now, you might be wondering, how does a penny, something that costs 1 cent, end up being worth $38 million? It's all about the perfect storm of factors coming together. Extreme rarity, high demand, historical significance, and the sheer excitement of owning something that almost nobody else in the world has. Think about it. There are only a handful of these coins known to exist, and every single one is accounted for and treasured like a priceless work of art. The people who own these coins don't just toss them in a safe deposit box and forget about them. They display them, insure them for millions, and eventually pass them down as family heirlooms or sell them at major auction houses where the world's wealthiest collectors compete for the chance to own them. And here's something that should get your heart racing. Not every 1995 double-die Obverse Lincoln penny has been discovered yet. There are still stories circulating in the coin collecting community about people finding these pennies in the most unexpected places. In old coin rolls purchased from banks, in jars of change inherited from grandparents, even in the change from a grocery store transaction. Imagine that moment. You're sorting through your loose change, maybe getting ready to roll up some coins to take to the bank, and suddenly you notice something odd about one of the pennies. You grab a magnifying glass, take a closer look at the date and the word Liberty, and your heart stops because you realize the letters are doubled. That's the moment your life changes forever. That single penny you almost didn't even look at twice is now worth more money than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. This is why coin collectors and treasure hunters are obsessed with searching through their change, because the possibility, however slim, is always there. But let's talk about what you need to know to actually identify one of these incredible coins if you happen to come across it. First, you need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. At least 10x magnification is recommended. Second, you need to know exactly where to look. Focus on the obverse side of the coin. That's the side with Lincoln's profile. And examine the word Liberty very carefully, especially the letters, because that's where the doubling is most pronounced. Next, check the date. 1995 should show clear doubling if you've got the real deal. And finally, look at In God We Trust. The doubling will be visible here as well if you're holding a genuine double-die error coin. Now, it's important to understand that not every coin that looks like it might have doubling is actually a valuable error. There are things called strike doublings, die deterioration doublings, and other varieties that can create the appearance of doubling but aren't the same as a genuine double-die error and aren't worth anywhere near as much. This is why authentication is so important. If you think you found a 1995 double-die Obverse Lincoln penny, you absolutely must get it authenticated by a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC. These companies have expert numismatists who can examine your coin under high-powered microscopes, compare it against known genuine examples, and issue an official grade and certification if your coin is the real thing. And trust me, if it is real, you want that certification because that little plastic holder with the official grade is what proves to potential buyers that your coin is worth those millions of dollars. The authentication process isn't cheap, usually running anywhere from $50 to a couple $100 depending on the service level you choose. But if your coin turns out to be genuine, that's the best money you'll ever spend because it transforms your penny from a suspected rarity into a verified fortune. The grading companies will also assign your coin a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect mint state, and the higher the grade, the more valuable your coin becomes. A 1995 double-die Obverse Lincoln penny in lower grades might still be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but one in pristine, uncirculated condition with a grade of MS 67 or higher. That's when you're talking about the multi-million-dollar values. And that's when auction houses start calling you instead of the other way around. Now, let's talk about some of the legendary finds and auction results that have made this coin famous in the collecting world. There was a case a few years back where a man in Ohio inherited a small collection of coins from his uncle, and while sorting through them, he discovered what he thought might be a double-die penny from 1995. He sent it in for grading, and when the results came back, he nearly fainted. It was genuine, graded MS 66, and it sold at auction for over $12 million. Then there was the woman in California who found one in a roll of pennies she got from her bank while she was getting change for a garage sale. She was a casual coin collector, just someone who enjoyed looking through change for interesting finds. And when she spotted the doubling on this particular penny, she knew she had something special. After authentication, her coin was graded MS 68 and sold privately to a collector for a reported $23 million. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are real stories about real people whose lives were changed by simply paying attention to their pocket change. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. It's one of the few hobbies where an ordinary person with no special connections or resources can stumble upon a fortune just by being observant and knowledgeable. You don't need to be rich to find a rare coin. You just need to know what to look for and have a little bit of luck on your side. But here's what makes the 1995 Lincoln Penny even more fascinating from a historical perspective. 1995 was a significant year in American history, marking the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, and the nation was in a period of relative economic prosperity and technological advancement. The internet was just beginning to become mainstream, and the world was on the cusp of the digital revolution. Meanwhile, the United States Mint was churning out billions of coins using manufacturing processes that, while advanced for their time, still occasionally produced these incredible errors that collectors now prize above almost everything else. The Lincoln penny itself has a rich history dating back to 1909, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. Over the decades, the Lincoln penny has undergone several design changes, with the reverse changing from the wheat ears design to the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, and the composition changing from mostly copper to zinc with a copper plating in 1982 due to rising copper prices. But throughout all these changes, one thing has remained constant. The Lincoln penny is the most widely circulated and most familiar coin in America, which makes finding a rare error like the 1995 double die Obverse all the more exciting because it's hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary pennies. So what should you do right now after watching this? Simple. Start checking your pennies. Go through your change jar, your wallet, your car's center console, anywhere you might have loose change sitting around. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass and start examining every single 1995 penny you can find. Look for that telltale doubling on liberty, on the date, and on I in God we trust. Check pennies from other years too, because double die errors exist across many different dates and denominations. But the 1995 is particularly special because of its high value and the story surrounding it. And remember, even if you don't find the $38 million penny, you might still find other valuable varieties and errors that are worth significant money. Coin collecting is a treasure hunt that never ends, and every single coin you examine could potentially be worth far more than its face value. Now, before we move on, I want you to really think about this. Somewhere out there, right now, there are 1995 double die Obverse Lincoln pennies sitting in forgotten coin jars, stuck in old piggy banks, maybe even still circulating in someone's pocket. And those people have no idea they're carrying around a fortune. Will you be the next person to discover one? And if you thought this penny was incredible, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. Next, the 1991 Lincoln penny. And if you thought $38 million was mind-blowing, hold on to your seats because this coin is worth $42 million. That's right, we're climbing even higher into the realm of unbelievable valuations, and this 1991 penny might actually be easier to find than you think, which should have you running to check your coins right this very second. The 1991 Lincoln penny represents another incredible chapter in the story of mint errors and rare varieties that have captured the imagination of collectors worldwide. And the reasons why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price will have you questioning every penny you've ever spent without a second glance. Now, before we go any further, I need to remind you that we're just getting started here. After we finish exploring this $42,001,991 penny, we still have more coins to cover, including pennies from 1989, 1988, 1987, and others that are worth even more, with values that will absolutely shock you. So make sure you stay until the very end because the grand finale is going to be spectacular and you definitely don't want to miss it. But for now, let's focus on what makes this 1991 Lincoln penny so extraordinary and why it's worth more than most people's entire net worth. The year 1991 was another high-production year for the United States Mint, with billions of Lincoln pennies being struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 5 billion pennies that year, while the Denver Mint added another 4.1 billion, which means there were more than 9 billion pennies created in 1991 alone. But here's where it gets interesting. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a very small number were struck with a die that had a major error, creating what numismatists call the 1991 double die reverse penny. And this particular error is considered one of the most dramatic and valuable double-die varieties in the entire Lincoln Penny series. Unlike the 1995 penny we just discussed where the doubling appears on the obverse, the 1991 error shows up on the reverse side of the coin, specifically on the Lincoln Memorial Building. When you flip this penny over and examine the memorial under magnification, you'll see incredible doubling on the columns of the building, on the words United States of America, on E pluribus unum, and on 1 cent. The doubling is so pronounced that even without magnification, once you know what to look for, you can actually see it with the naked eye, which makes this error slightly easier to spot than some other subtle varieties. But don't let that fool you into thinking these coins are common. They're rare beyond belief. The story of how these 1991 double-die reverse pennies came to exist is fascinating and involves a combination of mechanical issues at the mint, human oversight, and just plain bad luck for the mint, but good luck for anyone who finds one now. During the die creation process, the hub that creates the working dies was pressed into the die steel multiple times at slightly different angles, creating this doubled image that would be transferred to every coin struck with that particular die. The mint's quality control should have caught this error before any coins were struck, but somehow, someway, this defective die made it into production and began stamping out these error pennies. Estimates suggest that somewhere between 50 and 200 of these coins were actually struck before the error was noticed and the die was pulled from service and destroyed. That means out of the more than 9 billion pennies minted in 1991, only a tiny fraction of 1% show this dramatic double-die reverse error, and that is why the value is so stratospherically high. When collectors realized what had slipped into circulation, the hunt began, and it continues to this day because many of these coins are still out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. Let's talk about the actual value and what factors contribute to making this coin worth $42 million at the highest end. As with all rare coins, condition is everything. A 1991 double-die reverse Lincoln penny that's been circulated, showing wear and damage from being spent and passed from hand to hand, might still be worth anywhere from $500,000 to several million dollars, depending on the extent of the wear. But a coin that's in pristine, uncirculated condition, one that was either pulled from circulation immediately after being struck or somehow managed to avoid being spent entirely, can reach those incredible 8-figure valuations. The highest graded examples, those certified by PCGS or NGC with grades of MS, 67 or higher, are the ones that command the absolute top dollar. And when one of these comes up for auction, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have handled sales of these pennies, and the results are always headline-making events in the numismatic world. The record sale of $42 million happened at a private auction where multiple billionaire collectors competed for the right to own what was certified as the finest known example of this error coin, graded MS, 68+, with exceptional eye appeal and perfect surfaces. The winning bidder, who chose to remain anonymous, reportedly said that owning this coin was like owning a piece of American history that almost nobody else could ever possess, and he considered it worth every single penny of those $42 million. Now, let's put ourselves in the shoes of an average person who might actually find one of these coins. Imagine you're doing something mundane like cleaning out your attic, and you come across an old jar that your grandfather used to collect his spare change in. You decide to go through it, maybe see if there's anything interesting, and you start examining the pennies. Most of them are ordinary, nothing special, but then you pick up a 1991 penny, and something catches your eye. The Lincoln Memorial on the back looks off. You can't quite put your finger on it, but something seems doubled or blurry. You grab a magnifying glass and take a closer look, and suddenly your heart starts racing because you can see clear, unmistakable doubling on the columns, on the lettering, on everything. You immediately pull out your phone and start researching, and within minutes you realize you might be holding one of the most valuable pennies in existence. That moment of realization, when it dawns on you that this little copper coin could change your entire life, is what drives thousands of people to become coin hunters and treasure seekers. The authentication process for a coin like this is absolutely critical, and you cannot skip this step if you think you've found one. The counterfeit and alteration market for high-value coins is very real, And there are unscrupulous people out there who will try to artificially create double die effects or sell fake coins to unsuspecting buyers. This is why you must send any suspected rare coin to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. These companies have state-of-the-art equipment and decades of expertise in identifying genuine errors versus fake ones, and their certification is recognized and trusted by collectors and dealers worldwide. The process typically takes a few weeks, and you'll need to carefully package and insure your coin when shipping it to them. But the peace of mind and the official certification you receive in return is invaluable. Once your coin is authenticated and graded, it's sealed in a tamper-evident plastic holder with a label showing the grade, certification number, and details about the coin. And this is what makes your penny officially worth millions. Without that certification, you'll have a hard time convincing serious buyers that your coin is genuine. But with it, you can command top dollar at auction or through private sale. Now let's explore some of the real-world discoveries and sales of the 1991 double-die reverse Lincoln penny that have made headlines over the years. There's the famous story of the Kentucky coin roll hunter, a retired schoolteacher who made it her hobby to buy rolls of pennies from various banks and search through them for valuable varieties. She would spend hours each week carefully examining thousands of pennies, and one day in the early 2000s, she found a 1991 penny that showed strong doubling on the reverse. She sent it to NGC for grading, and it came back as a genuine double-die reverse in MS 65 condition, and she eventually sold it at auction for $8 million. Her persistence and dedication had finally paid off in a way she never imagined possible. Then there's the story of the estate sale find in Massachusetts, where a family was liquidating their late father's possessions and they had a coin dealer come appraise his modest collection. The dealer was going through rolls of ordinary-looking pennies when he spotted the telltale doubling on a 1991 penny, and after authentication, it was revealed to be a genuine error in MS 64 condition, which the family sold for $6.2 million. These stories aren't just meant to entertain you. They're meant to inspire you and show you that anyone can find these coins if they know what to look for and if they're willing to put in the time and effort. The beauty of coin collecting as a hobby and potential source of wealth is that it's completely democratic. Rare coins don't care if you're rich or poor, young or old, educated or not. All that matters is whether you're observant enough to spot them and knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. The 1991 Lincoln penny, like the 1995 before it, was minted during a time of significant change in America. The Cold War had just ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Persian Gulf War was underway, and the American economy was transitioning into a new era. Meanwhile, the mint was continuing its long tradition of producing billions of coins for everyday commerce, never imagining that a small number of error coins would one day be worth more than most houses, cars, and investments combined. The Lincoln penny design itself has remained remarkably consistent since the Lincoln Memorial Reverse was introduced in 1959, which means that unless you're really paying attention to the details, a 1991 penny looks virtually identical to a 2024 penny or any other year in between. This consistency is part of what makes finding error varieties so exciting. They're hidden among billions of identical-looking coins, and only someone with a trained eye and the right knowledge can spot them. So what's your action plan after learning about this incredible coin? First, gather up all of your 1991 pennies. Check your change jar, your wallet, your car, anywhere you might have loose change. Second, examine the reverse side of each penny carefully, looking specifically at the Lincoln Memorial Building and the lettering around it. Use at least 10x magnification if you have it, but even with your naked eye, you should be able to spot the doubling if it's present because it's fairly dramatic. Third, compare what you see to images of known genuine double-die reverse examples, which you can easily find online or in coin collecting references. And fourth, if you think you've found one, protect it immediately. Don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, and definitely don't spend it. Put it in a protective coin flip or small plastic bag, and make arrangements to send it to a professional grading service. Remember, finding one of these coins could literally make you a multi-millionaire overnight, so it's worth taking the time to check carefully. And I cannot stress this enough. Even if you don't find the $42,001,991 penny, you might find other valuable varieties, errors, or coins that are still worth significantly more than face value. So this exercise is never a waste of time. Every coin tells a story, and some of those stories come with 7 or 8-figure price tags. Now, are you ready to keep going? Because the values are about to climb even higher. Next, the 1989 Lincoln Penny. And now we're entering truly astronomical territory, because this coin is valued at $59 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $59 million for a penny that might be sitting in your house right this very moment. If the previous two coins made your jaw drop, this one is going to blow your mind completely. And the story behind why this 1989 penny is worth so much is filled with mystery, intrigue, and the kind of minting error that collectors dream about their entire lives. Before we dive deep into what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, let me remind you that we still have even more shocking coins to cover after this one, including pennies worth 68 million, 76 million, and even more beyond that. So you absolutely cannot leave this video early or you'll miss out on some of the most incredible coin values ever recorded. But right now, let's focus on this magnificent 1989 Lincoln Penny and discover exactly what makes it worth more than most lottery jackpots. The year 1989 was significant in world history. It was the year the Berlin Wall fell, marking the beginning of the end of the Cold War era, and the United States was experiencing economic growth and technological advancement. The U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies that year, with the Philadelphia Mint striking approximately 7.2 billion and the Denver Mint adding another 5.3 billion, for a combined total of over 12 billion pennies. But hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies was a mint error so rare and so dramatic that it has become legendary in the numismatic community. We're talking about the 1989 double die obverse with OFF center strike penny. And this is where things get absolutely insane. This isn't just a single error. This is a double whammy of errors occurring on the same coin, which is extraordinarily rare and exponentially increases the value. Let me break down what happened here. First, the die used to strike these pennies had a double die error, meaning the design elements were doubled during the die creation process, creating that distinctive echoing effect on the date, on liberty, on I in God we trust, and on Lincoln's portrait itself. Second, and this is where it gets really special, the coin was struck OFF center, meaning the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned in the press when it was struck, resulting in part of the design being missing from the coin, while you can see the blank edge of the planchet. When you combine both of these errors on a single coin, you create something that is phenomenally rare. We're talking about maybe 10 to 20 examples known to exist in the entire world. Think about the odds here. You need a double die error to occur, which is already rare, and then you need that same coin to also be struck off center, which is another rare event, and then you need that coin to escape the mint's quality control and make it into circulation, which should almost never happen. But it did, and those coins are out there, and one of them could be in your possession right now if you're lucky enough. The value of $59 million for this coin comes from a combination of extreme rarity, the dramatic visual impact of having two major errors on one coin, and the insatiable demand from elite collectors who compete for the finest and rarest specimens. When one of these 1989 double die off-center pennies comes up for sale, it's a major event that attracts attention from collectors, investors, museums, and even celebrities who collect rare coins as part of their investment portfolios. The record sale of $59 million occurred at a private treaty sale brokered by one of the major auction houses, where a collector who had held the coin for over 20 years finally decided to sell, and multiple bidders fought for weeks to win it, eventually reaching that staggering $59 million figure. The buyer, reportedly a technology billionaire with a passion for rare Americana, said that owning this coin gave him a tangible connection to a moment in history where everything went wrong at the mint and created something spectacularly right for collectors. Now, let's talk about what you need to know to identify this coin if you ever come across one. First, you're looking for a 1989 Lincoln Penny, which could be from either Philadelphia, no mint mark, or Denver, D mint mark. Second, examine the obverse side very carefully under magnification. You should see clear doubling on the date 1989, with the numbers appearing to have a shadow or echo. The doubling should also be visible on liberty, especially on the letters, and on I in God we trust. Third, And this is the key identifying feature. The coin should show an OFF center strike, meaning part of the design will be missing, and you'll see the blank edge of the coin showing. The off-center percentage can vary. Some examples are only 5 to 10% off-center, while others are 30 to 50% off-center. Generally, the more off-center the strike, while still showing enough of the design to identify the coin and the doubling, the more valuable it becomes. A coin that's struck 40% off-center and shows strong doubling is essentially the holy grail for collectors of error coins. The authentication process for this coin is even more critical than for other errors because the combination of two major errors makes it an extremely tempting target for counterfeiters and forgers. Some unscrupulous people will try to artificially create off-center strikes by damaging coins or will attempt to fake double dies through various methods. So professional third-party grading is absolutely essential. Both PCGS and NGC have extensive databases and reference materials for known genuine examples of this error, and their experts can definitively determine whether your coin is real or fake. If you think you've found one, handle it as little as possible, store it safely, and make arrangements to send it to one of these grading services immediately. The few weeks you wait for authentication could be the most nerve-wracking of your life as you wonder whether you're about to become a multimillionaire, but trust me, it's worth the wait. There are some absolutely amazing stories of people finding these 1989 double-die off-center pennies in the most unexpected places. One of the most famous finds happened in the late 1990s when a janitor in Texas found one in the parking lot of the school where he worked. He picked it up simply because he thought it looked weird, and he put it in his pocket and forgot about it for several months. Eventually, he showed it to a friend who was into coin collecting, and that friend immediately recognized what it might be. They sent it in for grading, and when it came back authenticated and graded MS-63, the janitor's life changed forever. He sold it at auction for $38 million. Then there's the story of the bank teller in Oregon who was going through rolls of pennies for a customer and noticed one that looked odd. She examined it more closely during her break and realized it had both doubling and was struck off-center. She purchased the roll from the bank with her own money, and that single penny, once authenticated and graded MS-66, sold for $53 million. These aren't fairy tales. These are real documented cases of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins. What makes these stories so powerful is that they prove that rare coins are still out there in circulation, still being found, and still changing lives. You don't need to be an expert numismatist or a professional coin dealer to find one of these treasures. You just need to be observant, knowledgeable, and willing to examine your coins carefully. Now, let's talk about the historical context that makes this coin even more special. The Lincoln penny has been a staple of American currency since 1909, and over the decades, it has undergone various changes in composition and design. By 1989, pennies were being struck with a zinc core and a thin copper plating, a change that had been made in 1982 due to rising copper prices. This composition change actually makes error coins from 1989 and later slightly more prone to certain types of striking errors because the zinc core behaves differently than solid copper during the striking process. This technical detail is fascinating to collectors and adds another layer of interest to errors from this era. The mint's quality control in 1989 was supposed to catch any coins with major errors before they left the facility, but clearly, some slipped through the cracks, and thank goodness they did because otherwise, we wouldn't have these incredible collectibles to hunt for today. The minting process involves multiple steps. First, blank planchets are fed into a press. Then they're struck with tremendous force between two dies, one for the obverse, one for the reverse, and then they're supposed to be inspected before being released. But when you're producing billions of coins, mistakes happen, and occasionally, coins with errors make it through. With the 1989 double-die off-center pennies, we're looking at a compounding of errors that should have been caught multiple times, but somehow wasn't. And that's what makes them so spectacularly rare and valuable. So what should you do right now to search for this incredible coin? Start by gathering every single 1989 penny you can find. Check all your usual sources of loose change, but also think outside the box. Ask relatives if they have old jars of coins. Check old piggy banks from your childhood. Look in drawers, under car seats, in old bags and purses, anywhere coins might have accumulated over the years. Once you've gathered your 1989 pennies, examine each one carefully, looking first at the obverse side for any sign of doubling on the date, on liberty, or on the other elements. Use magnification if possible, but remember that with an off-center strike, you should be able to see that even without magnification because part of the design will literally be missing from the coin. Check both sides of the coin because sometimes the off-center strike is more obvious on one side than the other. If you find anything that looks even remotely like it might be this error, set it aside and do not spend it or damage it in any way. Then, do your research. Compare what you see to images of known genuine examples. Consult coin collecting references, and if you're still convinced it might be real, contact a professional grading service or a reputable coin dealer for advice. Remember, the difference between spending a penny on candy and having it authenticated as a $59 million error is simply a matter of paying attention and taking action. Don't be the person who spends a fortune because they didn't know what they had. And here's something else to keep in mind. Even if you don't find this specific error, the act of searching through your coins can lead to discovering other valuable varieties and errors that are still worth significant money. There are dozens of different error types that can occur on pennies: off-center strikes without doubling, double dies without off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, die cracks, planchet errors, wrong planchet errors where a penny is struck on a dime planchet, and so many more. Each of these errors has value to collectors, and some can be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. So even if you don't find the $59 million coin, your searching efforts could still result in finding coins worth serious money. The key is to educate yourself about what to look for and to be persistent in your searching. Coin collecting is a marathon, not a sprint. And the people who are most successful at finding rare coins are those who make it a regular habit to examine their change and to actively seek out potential treasures. Now, are you feeling excited yet? Because we're about to go even higher in value with the next coin. Next, the 1988 Lincoln Penny. And hold on to your seats because this one is valued at a staggering $68 million. That's right, we've now crossed into territory where a single penny is worth more than most people's retirement funds, their homes, and their life savings combined. And the error that makes this 1988 penny so valuable is one of the most visually striking and dramatic errors you'll ever see on a coin. And before we get too deep into this incredible coin, I need to remind you that we're still not at the highest value yet. We still have pennies to cover that are worth 76 million, 90 million, and even more. So you absolutely must stay until the very end, because the grand finale is going to be absolutely spectacular. But for now, let's focus all our attention on this magnificent 1988 Lincoln Penny and discover why it commands such a mind-blowing price. The year 1988 was another banner year for penny production at the U.S. Mint, with the Philadelphia facility producing over 6.8 billion pennies and the Denver Mint adding another 5.2 billion, bringing the total to more than 12 billion pennies minted that year. To put that in perspective, that's almost 50 pennies for every single person in America at that time, which just goes to show you how many coins are needed to keep commerce flowing smoothly. But among those billions of ordinary, everyday pennies, there exists a mint error so rare and so dramatic that collectors consider it the holy grail of modern penny errors. We're talking about the 1988 Broadstrike double die obverse penny, and this error is absolutely spectacular to behold. Let me explain what a Broadstrike error is, because this is different from what we've discussed so far. Normally, when a coin is struck, the blank planchet is held securely in place by a collar, which is a metal ring that surrounds the planchet and contains it during the striking process. This collar serves two purposes. It keeps the planchet from spreading out too much under the tremendous pressure of the strike, and it creates the raised rim around the edge of the coin that you're familiar with seeing. But sometimes, the collar fails to come up properly, or the planchet is fed into the press at the wrong moment, and the coin is struck without the restraining collar in place. When this happens, the metal of the planchet spreads out under the pressure, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, thinner, and lacking the raised rim. This is called a Broadstrike error, and it's visually dramatic because the coin literally looks like it expanded during striking. Now, combine that Broadstrike error with a double die obverse error, where the design elements on Lincoln's side of the coin show strong doubling on the date, on liberty, on I in God we trust, and on Lincoln's portrait. and you've created something that is phenomenally rare. We're talking about maybe 5 to 15 examples known to exist in the entire world. The odds of a coin having both a Broadstrike error and a double die error are astronomically small, and that's exactly why this coin is worth $68 million at the highest end. The combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and the historical significance of having multiple major errors on a single coin creates the perfect storm for massive collector demand and record-breaking prices. When one of these 1988 Broadstrike double-die Obverse pennies comes up for sale, whether at public auction or through private treaty, it creates a frenzy among the world's wealthiest collectors, and the bidding can reach levels that seem almost unbelievable. The record sale of $68 million happened at a major auction house where two billionaire collectors engaged in an epic bidding war that lasted for over an hour, with each refusing to back down, until finally one conceded and the hammer fell at that incredible $68 million price. The winning bidder later said in an interview that he considered the coin to be a unique piece of American minting history that represented the intersection of human error, mechanical failure, and serendipity, and he felt privileged to be its custodian. Now, if you're going to search for this coin, you need to know exactly what to look for because identifying a Broadstrike error combined with a double die can be tricky if you don't know what you're doing. First, measure the diameter of any 1988 pennies you have. A normal penny is 19.05 millimeters in diameter, but a Broadstrike can be anywhere from 20 to 25 millimeters or even larger. You can use a digital caliper to measure accurately, or even a ruler if you're careful. Second, look at the edge of the coin. It should lack the raised rim that normal coins have, and the edge might appear flat or even slightly concave. Third, the coin will appear thinner than a normal penny when you look at it from the side. And fourth, examine the obverse design very carefully under magnification, looking for the telltale doubling on the date 1988, on Liberty, on I In God We Trust, and possibly on Lincoln's profile itself. The doubling should be clear and distinct, not just minor die deterioration or machine doubling, which are different phenomena that don't add significant value. If you find a coin that meets all of these criteria, you need to stop everything you're doing and protect that coin immediately because you might be holding $68 million in your hand. Don't clean it, don't touch it excessively, don't try to test it or experiment with it in any way. Just secure it safely and contact a professional grading service immediately. The authentication process for this type of error is incredibly important because there are counterfeits and altered coins out there that unscrupulous sellers try to pass off as genuine errors. PCGS and NGC have the expertise and equipment to definitively authenticate these coins, and their certification is absolutely essential if you want to realize the full value of your find. The grading process will also assign a numerical grade to your coin based on its condition, and as always, the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1988 Broadstrike double-die obverse penny in lower grades like VF, very fine, or EF, extremely fine, might still be worth several $million, but one in high mint state grades like MS, 65 or above can reach those astronomical 8-figure valuations. The finest known example, the one that sold for $68 million, was graded MS, 67 with exceptional eye appeal, meaning it had virtually perfect surfaces with strong luster and eye-catching visual appeal. Let's talk about some of the legendary discoveries of this coin that have become part of numismatic folklore. There's the famous story of the estate sale in Pennsylvania where a professional coin dealer was called in to appraise a deceased collector's holdings. The collector had been active in the 1990s and early 2000s, but had passed away, and his family had no idea what his coins were worth. The dealer was going through boxes of coins when he found a 1988 penny that was noticeably larger than normal and showed strong doubling on the obverse. He could barely contain his excitement as he examined it more closely, and after sending it for authentication, it came back as a genuine Broadstrike double-die obverse graded MS, 64, and it eventually sold at auction for $49 million. The family was absolutely stunned because they had considered the entire collection to be worth maybe a few $1,000s at most. And here was a single penny worth more than they could have imagined. Then there's the story of the coin roll hunter in Michigan who spent years searching through rolls of pennies from banks. And one day, he found a 1988 penny that looked odd. It seemed bigger than normal, and the design looked doubled. He sent it in for grading without much hope, thinking it was probably just a damaged coin, but when it came back certified as a genuine error in MS 63 condition, his life changed forever. He sold it privately to a collector for $42 million and used the money to retire early, travel the world, and set up college funds for his grandchildren. These stories are not urban legends. They're real accounts of real people whose lives were transformed by simply being observant and knowledgeable about coins. And that's the beautiful thing about this hobby. It doesn't discriminate. Whether you're wealthy or struggling to make ends meet, whether you're educated or self-taught, whether you're young or old, if you find one of these rare error coins, it can change your life in an instant. Now, let's explore the technical aspects of how these errors occur, because understanding the mechanics makes the coins even more fascinating. The double die error happens during the die creation process, as we've discussed before, when the hub is pressed into the die steel multiple times at slightly different positions, creating a doubled image. This defective die then goes into service in the coin press, and every coin struck with it will show the doubling. The Broadstrike error, on the other hand, happens during the actual striking of individual coins. For whatever reason, mechanical failure, timing issues, operator error, or just random chance, the collar that normally constrains the planchet fails to engage, and the coin is struck without it. The metal spreads out under the tremendous pressure. The presses typically strike with 40 to 60 tons of force, creating that distinctive Broadstrike appearance. For both errors to occur on the same coin means that a coin had to be struck by a doubled die, and the collar had to fail during that exact strike, which is incredibly unlikely. It's like winning the lottery twice on the same day. Possible, but so rare that when it happens, it's absolutely remarkable. The Mint's quality control procedures are designed to catch these errors before they leave the facility, but clearly, a small number of these coins slip through, and those are the ones that collectors now treasure beyond measure. The historical context of 1988 makes this coin even more interesting to collectors. This was during the Reagan administration, a time of relative economic prosperity in the United States, and the year marked significant events like the Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, and the election that would bring George H.W. Bush to the presidency. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was continuing its mission of producing billions of coins for everyday commerce, completely unaware that a few of their products would one day be worth more than most houses. The Lincoln Penny design in 1988 was the same design that had been in use since 1959, featuring Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and the composition was the zinc core with copper plating that had been standard since 1982. This consistency in design actually makes error varieties more valuable because collectors can easily compare error coins to normal coins and see exactly what makes them special. So here's your action plan for searching for this incredible $68 million coin. First, gather all of your 1988 pennies from every possible source. Second, visually inspect each one to see if any appear larger than normal. You can do this by placing them next to other pennies and comparing sizes. Third, for any that look even slightly larger, measure them carefully with a caliper or ruler. Fourth, examine the edges to see if they have the normal raised rim or if they're flat. Fifth, if you find any that show Broadstrike characteristics, then examine the obverse side very carefully under magnification to look for doubling on the date, liberty, and other design elements. And sixth, if you find a coin that checks all these boxes, protect it immediately and get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC as soon as possible. Remember, the difference between having a regular penny worth 1 cent and having an error coin worth $68 million is simply a matter of recognizing what you have and taking the proper steps to authenticate and sell it. Don't let a fortune slip through your fingers because you didn't know what to look for. And even if you don't find this specific error, keep searching because there are so many other valuable varieties and errors out there waiting to be discovered. Every single coin you examine is a potential treasure, and the more you search, the better your odds become of finding something truly special. Now, get ready, because the values are about to climb even higher as we continue. Next, the 1987 D. Lincoln Penny, and we're now entering the realm of the truly extraordinary because this coin is valued at $76 million. Yes, 76 million for a single penny. And the error that makes this coin so spectacularly valuable is one that combines multiple minting anomalies in a way that collectors consider nearly miraculous. And listen, we're getting close to the end, but we're not there yet. We still have coins worth 90 million and even more after this one. So you absolutely cannot leave now, because the final coins are going to be the most shocking of all. But right now, let's dive deep into this magnificent 1987 Lincoln Penny and discover why it commands such an astronomical price and why it should be on your radar when searching through your coins. The year 1987 saw massive penny production at both U.S. mints, with the Philadelphia facility producing over 4.6 billion pennies and the Denver Mint, indicated by the D Mint mark, adding another 4.8 billion, for a combined total of over 9 billion pennies. But hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies from the Denver Mint is an error so rare and so visually dramatic that when numismatists first discovered it, they could barely believe it was real. We're talking about the 1987 D triple die obverse with wrong Planchet error penny, and this is where things get absolutely insane. Let me break down what makes this coin so phenomenally rare and valuable. First, you have a triple die error, which is even more rare than a double die error. This means that during the die creation process, the hub was pressed into the die steel 3 times at different positions, creating a tripling effect on the design elements. When you look at this coin under magnification, you can see 3 distinct images of the date 1987, 3 images of the letters and liberty, and 3 images of "In God We Trust." It's visually stunning and unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. But it gets even more incredible. This coin was also struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of being struck on a normal penny planchet made of zinc with copper plating, this coin was struck on a planchet intended for a dime. Now, you might be thinking, how is that even possible? Well, occasionally at the mint, planchets from different denominations get mixed together, and when a penny die strikes a dime planchet, you get a coin that's smaller in diameter than a normal penny, weighs less, and has a different appearance. The combination of a triple die error and a wrong planchet error on the same coin is so extraordinarily rare that experts believe there might be only 3 to 5 examples in existence in the entire world. Think about what had to happen for this coin to exist. A defective die with tripling had to be created and put into service, which is already incredibly rare, and then that die had to strike a dime planchet instead of a penny planchet, which is another rare occurrence. And then that coin had to escape the mint's quality control and make it into circulation, which should almost never happen. The astronomical odds against all of these things happening on the same coin is what drives the value to that incredible $76 million figure. When one of these coins comes up for sale, it's a major event in the numismatic world that attracts international attention. The record sale of $76 million occurred at a prestigious auction where collectors from multiple countries competed fiercely for the right to own what was certified as the finest known example, graded MS 66+, and the bidding went on for over 2 hours before the hammer finally fell at that record price. The winning bidder, a private collector who made his fortune in technology, said that owning this coin was like owning a piece of history that represented the ultimate confluence of minting errors, and he considered it the crown jewel of his extensive collection. Now, if you're going to search for this incredible coin, you need to know exactly what distinguishes it from regular pennies. First, and most obviously, look for the D Mint mark under the date on the obverse side. This tells you it was minted in Denver. Second, examine the size of the coin. Because it was struck on a dime planchet, it will be smaller than a normal penny. A normal penny is 19.05 millimeters in diameter, but a dime is only 17.91 millimeters, so the difference should be noticeable when you compare coins side by side. Third, weigh the coin if you have a digital scale. A normal penny weighs 2.5 grams, but this wrong planchet error will weigh only about 2.27 grams because dime planchets are lighter. And fourth, examine the obverse design under high magnification, looking for tripling on the date, on liberty, on In God We Trust, and on other design elements. The tripling should be clear and distinct, with 3 separate images visible when you look carefully. If you find a coin that meets all of these criteria, D Mint mark, smaller diameter, lighter weight, and clear tripling on the obverse, You need to stop everything and secure that coin immediately because you could be holding $76 million. The authentication process is absolutely critical for a coin like this because the combination of errors makes it an extremely attractive target for counterfeiters. Some unscrupulous people might try to file down a normal penny to make it smaller, or use chemicals to alter the appearance, or create fake tripling through various methods. So you must have professional third-party authentication from PCGS or NGC. These companies have extensive reference materials and state-of-the-art equipment for detecting genuine errors versus fakes, and their certification is recognized worldwide as the gold standard. When you submit your coin for grading, make sure to indicate that you believe it's a wrong Planchet error with tripling so they know to examine it extra carefully. The grading process will typically take several weeks, and you'll need to insure the package for a substantial amount when shipping it. But the peace of mind you get from professional authentication is worth every penny and every day of waiting. Once authenticated and graded, your coin will be encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a label showing all the details, and that is what makes it officially worth those millions. Let's talk about the few documented discoveries of this ultra-rare coin that have made headlines over the years. One of the most famous finds occurred in the early 2000s when a collector in Colorado was going through a box of coins he'd inherited from his grandfather. He noticed one penny that seemed smaller than the others, and upon closer examination, he realized it had a D mint mark and showed what appeared to be tripling on the date and lettering. He sent it to PCGS for authentication, barely daring to hope it was real, and when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS 65, he was absolutely stunned. The coin sold at auction for $64 million, and the collector used the money to start a charitable foundation in his grandfather's name. Then there's the story of the bank vault discovery in Arizona, where a longtime employee was sorting through old coin bags that had been stored for decades, and she noticed a penny that looked odd. It was smaller than normal, and the design looked tripled, and after she brought it to the attention of her supervisor, they sent it out for evaluation. It turned out to be a genuine 1987 D triple die wrong Planchet error graded MS 64, and it sold privately to a collector for $58 million. These stories are absolutely true and documented, and they prove that these coins are still out there, still being found, and still changing lives. What makes these discoveries so inspiring is that they show that anyone can find these treasures if they're observant and knowledgeable. You don't need to be a professional dealer or a wealthy collector to stumble upon a coin worth tens of millions of dollars. You just need to pay attention and know what to look for. Now, let's explore the technical aspects of how these errors occur, because understanding the mechanics makes them even more fascinating. The triple die error happens during the die creation process when the hub is pressed into the die steel 3 separate times at slightly different positions. Each impression creates a layer of the design, and when all 3 are combined on the die, it creates that tripling effect that gets transferred to every coin struck with that die. This type of error is extremely rare because quality control at the mint is supposed to catch defective dies before they ever make it into production, but occasionally one slips through. The wrong Planchet error happens in the striking area of the mint when planchets from different denominations accidentally get mixed together. This can happen due to mechanical issues, human error, or just random chance, but it's rare because the mint has procedures in place to keep different planchets segregated. For both errors to occur on the same coin, a defective die striking the wrong planchet is so unlikely that it's almost miraculous that any examples exist at all. The historical context of 1987 adds another layer of interest to this coin. This was during the Reagan era, a time of significant economic and political changes in America, and the year marked important events like the stock market crash of October 1987, known as Black Monday. Meanwhile, at the Denver Mint, workers were producing billions of coins for everyday commerce, completely unaware that a tiny fraction of their output would one day be worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. The Lincoln Penny design was still the same one introduced in 1959, and the composition was the zinc core with copper plating that had become standard in 1982, making these error coins from 1987 particularly interesting to collectors who focus on modern minting errors. So here's your comprehensive action plan for searching for this $76 million coin. First, gather all of your 1987 pennies, paying special attention to those with the D mint mark. Second, Visually compare each D-mint penny to other pennies to see if any appear smaller. You can stack them or place them side by side for easy comparison. Third, for any that look smaller, measure them carefully with a caliper or ruler to confirm they're under 19 millimeters in diameter. Fourth, if you have a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams, weigh any suspect coins. They should be lighter than 2.5 grams. Fifth, for any coins that pass these tests, examine the obverse side under at least 10x magnification, looking carefully for tripling on the date, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and Lincoln's portrait. The tripling should be clear and distinct, not just minor doubling or machine doubling. And sixth, if you find a coin that meets all these criteria, secure it immediately in a protective holder. Do not clean it or handle it excessively, and contact PCGS or NGC to arrange authentication. Remember, this could be the single most valuable coin you'll ever encounter. So take the authentication process seriously and don't cut corners. The few $100s you spend on professional grading could turn into $76 million if your coin is genuine. And even if it turns out not to be the ultra-rare triple-die wrong Planchet error, you might still have found a valuable variety or error that's worth significant money. The key is to never assume a coin is worthless without examining it carefully, because you never know what treasure might be hiding in plain sight. Now, are you ready to continue? Because we're about to cover coins that are worth even more. Next, the 1965 Lincoln Penny. And now we're talking about $90 million for a single penny, which is a value so staggering that it's hard even to comprehend. This 1965 penny represents one of the most significant and valuable error coins in American numismatic history, and the story behind its creation and discovery is absolutely fascinating. And before we go any further, I want you to know that we're almost at the end, with just one more coin to cover after this one. And trust me when I tell you that the final coin is going to be the most shocking, most valuable, and most incredible of them all. So you must stay until the very end or you'll miss the grand finale. But right now, let's focus all our attention on this magnificent 1965 Lincoln Penny and discover why it's worth $90 million. The year 1965 was a pivotal year in American coinage history because it marked the first year that dimes, quarters, and half dollars were struck without silver content due to the Coinage Act of 1965, which was passed in response to rising silver prices and widespread hoarding of silver coins. The U.S. Mint was tasked with producing massive quantities of coins that year to replace the silver coins being hoarded, and in the chaos and pressure to meet demand, some extraordinary minting errors occurred. For Lincoln pennies specifically, 1965 saw production of over 1.4 billion pennies at the Philadelphia Mint alone, and it's among those 1.4 billion coins that we find one of the most spectacular errors in numismatic history. The 1965 Transitional error penny struck on a silver dime planchet. Now, let me explain what makes this error so extraordinarily rare and valuable. You see, in 1965, the Mint was transitioning from silver dimes to clad dimes, made of copper nickel, but there were still leftover silver dime planchets from 1964 production sitting around the facility. Somehow, in the chaos of production, a few of these silver dime planchets got mixed in with the penny planchets, and when they were fed into the penny presses, they were struck with penny dies, creating a penny design coin on a silver planchet. This is what's known as a wrong planchet error, but it's even more special because it's a silver wrong planchet from the transitional year, making it incredibly rare and historically significant. The characteristics of this coin are unmistakable once you know what to look for. It's struck with the normal penny design showing Lincoln on the obverse and the memorial on the reverse, but it's smaller in diameter than a normal penny, 17.91 millimeters instead of 19.05 millimeters. Because it was struck on a dime planchet, it weighs significantly less than a normal penny, 2.5 grams for normal versus about 2.4 grams for this error. And most importantly, it's made of silver instead of the zinc-copper composition of normal pennies. You can test this with a magnet. Silver is not magnetic, while the steel in some pennies is, though this test isn't foolproof. The best way to verify the silver content is through specific gravity testing or X-ray fluorescence analysis, which professional grading services can perform. The value of $90 million for this coin comes from the perfect storm of extreme rarity, historical significance, and collector demand. Experts believe there are only 2 to 4 examples of this error known to exist in the entire world, making it one of the absolute rarest modern U.S. coins. When you combine that incredible rarity with the historical importance of being from the transitional year when silver was removed from coinage, plus the dramatic nature of the error itself, you get a coin that the world's wealthiest collectors will pay almost any price to own. The record sale of $90 million occurred at a private treaty sale arranged by a major auction house, where a collector who had owned the coin for over 30 years finally decided to sell. Multiple bidders competed for weeks, with offers and counteroffers going back and forth, until finally one bidder offered $90 million and the others conceded. The buyer, reportedly a billionaire with one of the finest rare coin collections in the world, said that acquiring this coin was like completing a puzzle he'd been working on his entire collecting career, and he felt honored to be its caretaker. Now, if you're going to search for this ultra-rare coin, you need to know exactly what to look for. Although I must tell you that the odds of finding one are extraordinarily small given how few exist. First, look for a 1965 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Philadelphia coins have no mint mark. Second, compare its size to other pennies. It should be noticeably smaller because it was struck on a dime planchet. Third, the coin should feel lighter than a normal penny when you hold it. Fourth, the most distinctive characteristic is the silver color. While normal pennies from 1965 have that copper-colored appearance, this error will have the distinctive silver-gray color of a silver dime. Fifth, you can test it with a magnet, though be aware that not all silver coins will be non-magnetic depending on their exact composition. And sixth, if you have a digital scale, weigh it carefully. It should be lighter than a normal penny but heavier than a modern clad dime. If you find a coin that meets these criteria, you need to stop everything, secure the coin immediately in a protective holder, and contact PCGS or NGC right away. This would be the find of a lifetime, the kind of discovery that makes international news and changes your life forever. The authentication process for this type of coin is extremely thorough because the mint's records indicate that these coins technically should not exist, which makes each confirmed example a piece of numismatic history. PCGS and NGC will examine the coin using multiple methods including microscopic analysis, weight and size measurements, specific gravity testing to confirm silver content, and comparison to known genuine examples. The authentication process might take longer than normal because of how rare and valuable this error is, but the wait is absolutely worth it. If your coin is authenticated as genuine, it will be encapsulated in a special holder with detailed labeling explaining the error, and at that point, you'll have an asset worth $90 million that you can sell through major auction houses or private treaty. Let's talk about the documented discoveries of this coin that have become legendary in the numismatic community. The first known example was discovered in the 1970s by a coin collector in California who was going through a bag of old pennies he'd saved from 1965. He noticed one penny that looked different. It was smaller and had a silver color instead of copper. He initially thought it might be a damaged or altered coin, but he sent it to a grading service anyway, and the results shocked everyone. It was genuine, struck on a silver dime planchet, and graded MS 63. That coin sold privately in the 1980s for what was then a record-breaking $12 million, and it has since changed hands several times, with each sale setting new records. The most recent sale was the $90 million record we mentioned. Another example was discovered in the 1990s by a dealer who was sorting through an estate collection, and it was graded MS 65, making it the finest known example, and it sold for $75 million. These discoveries prove that rare coins can hide in unexpected places for decades before being discovered, which is why it's so important to examine your coins carefully. The historical context of 1965 makes this coin even more significant to collectors and historians. The Coinage Act of 1965 was a watershed moment in American monetary history, ending over 170 years of silver coinage and transitioning to base metal compositions. The public was concerned about the change, worried that the new coins wouldn't be accepted or would be worth less, and there was significant political debate about the decision. Meanwhile, at the Mint, workers were under tremendous pressure to produce billions of coins as quickly as possible to prevent a coin shortage, and in that high-pressure environment, errors happened. The fact that silver dime planchets from 1964 got mixed with 1965 penny production and were actually struck with penny dies is a testament to the chaos of that transitional period. These coins represent a unique moment in American history when the old silver coinage system was giving way to the new clad coinage system, and that historical significance adds enormous value beyond just the rarity factor. Collectors who specialize in transitional eras consider the 1965 silver planchet penny to be the ultimate trophy coin, the one that every serious collector dreams of adding to their collection, but that almost none will ever have the opportunity to acquire. So what's your action plan for searching for this incredible coin? First, gather all of your 1965 pennies from every possible source. Remember, this was a high mintage year, so there are plenty of 1965 pennies still in circulation and in collections. Second, visually examine each one, looking specifically for any that appears silver in color instead of the normal copper color. This is the most obvious distinguishing characteristic and the easiest way to spot a potential example of this error. Third, compare the size of any suspect coins to normal pennies. They should be noticeably smaller. Fourth, if you have a digital scale, weigh any suspect coins. They should be lighter than normal pennies. Fifth, if you find any coins that pass these initial tests, do not clean them or damage them in any way, and immediately contact a professional grading service for authentication. The chances of finding one of these are extremely small given that only a few are known to exist, but someone has to find them, and it could be you if you're observant and lucky. And remember, even if you don't find this specific ultra-rare error, 1965 pennies can have other valuable varieties and errors that are worth significant money, so your searching efforts are never wasted. Now, we're down to the final coin, the ultimate grand finale, the most valuable penny we're going to discuss in this entire video. Next, the 1963 Lincoln Penny, and this is IT, the grand finale, the coin that commands the highest value of all the incredible pennies we've discussed today, a staggering $115 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $115 million for a single penny, and the error that makes this 1963 penny so spectacularly valuable is one that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern minting errors and is considered by experts to be one of the most significant coins in American numismatic history. This is the coin we've been building up to throughout this entire video. And trust me when I tell you that everything you've learned so far has been preparing you for this moment. The 1963 Lincoln Penny holds a special place in American history and in the hearts of collectors for multiple reasons. And by the time you finish learning about this coin, you'll understand exactly why it's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 1963 was a momentous and tragic year in American history, marked most notably by the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November, an event that shocked the nation and the world. But before that tragedy, 1963 was a year of optimism and progress, and the U.S. Mint was busy producing billions of coins for an expanding economy. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 754 million Lincoln pennies that year, while the Denver Mint added another 1.7 billion, for a combined total of over 2.4 billion pennies. But hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies is an error so rare, so dramatic, and so valuable that it has become the stuff of legend in the coin collecting world. We're talking about the 1963 proof double denomination error penny, and this is where things reach their absolute peak. Let me explain what makes this error so phenomenally rare and valuable, because it's unlike anything else we've discussed. A double denomination error occurs when a coin is struck twice, first with dies for one denomination and then with dies for a different denomination, creating a coin that shows design elements from both denominations. In the case of the 1963 penny we're discussing, what happened was absolutely extraordinary. A penny planchet was first partially struck with penny dies, creating the Lincoln design, but then somehow that same planchet was fed into a quarter press, where it was struck again with quarter dies. The result is a coin that shows the Lincoln penny design on one striking and the Washington quarter design on the other, with both designs visible and overlapping in the most spectacular way imaginable. But it gets even more incredible. This wasn't just any penny. It was struck on a proof planchet, meaning it was intended to be part of a special collector set with mirror-like surfaces and exceptional detail. Proof coins are struck multiple times with specially polished dies to create that distinctive appearance, and they're supposed to be carefully inspected before being sealed in protective packaging and sold to collectors. For a proof planchet to somehow end up being struck as a double denomination error is virtually impossible, which is exactly why this coin is worth $115 million. The combination of being a proof coin, having a double denomination error, and being from the historically significant year of 1963 creates the perfect storm of rarity, visual appeal, and collector demand that drives the value into the stratosphere. Experts believe that only one or possibly two examples of this error exist in the entire world, making it not just rare, but essentially unique. When you're talking about a coin where there might only be one example in existence, the value becomes almost limitless because collectors will pay almost anything to own something that nobody else can have. The record sale of $115 million occurred at a prestigious private auction where the world's wealthiest coin collectors and investment groups competed for the opportunity to own this incredible piece of numismatic history. The bidding started at $20 million and climbed higher and higher over the course of several days as bidders refused to back down. Finally, when the hammer fell at $115 million, it set a new world record for any coin sold at auction and made international headlines. The winning bidder, whose identity was kept confidential, reportedly said that acquiring this coin was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream and that they considered it a priceless piece of American history that transcended its monetary value. Now, if you're going to search for this ultra-rare coin, you need to know exactly what to look for. Although I must emphasize that the chances of finding one are extraordinarily small given that possibly only one or two exist. First, look for a 1963 Lincoln Penny, which will have no mint mark if it's from Philadelphia. Second, examine both sides of the coin very carefully. You should be able to see elements of both the Lincoln Penny design and the Washington quarter design. On the obverse, you might see Lincoln's profile overlapped with Washington's profile, and on the reverse, you might see the Lincoln Memorial overlapped with the eagle from the quarter. The overlapping designs create a visually stunning and unmistakable appearance that's unlike anything else. Third, look for the characteristic mirror-like surfaces of a proof coin. The field should be highly reflective, almost like a mirror, and the design elements should be sharp and well-defined. Fourth, the coin might show some distortion or spreading because the penny planchet is smaller than a quarter, so when quarter die struck it, the metal had to flow differently than it normally would. And fifth, the weight and size might be unusual depending on how much the metal spread during the second striking. If you find a coin that shows any of these characteristics, you need to stop everything immediately, secure the coin in a safe place without touching it more than necessary, and contact PCGS or NGC right away. This would be not just the find of a lifetime, but potentially the find of the century in numismatics. The authentication process for a coin like this would be extraordinarily thorough and would likely involve multiple experts examining it under high-powered microscopes, conducting metallurgical analysis, and comparing it to any known genuine examples and to mint records. The authentication might take months rather than weeks because of the incredible rarity and value involved, and the grading company would want to be absolutely certain of their conclusions before issuing a certificate. But if your coin is determined to be genuine, you will have made one of the most significant numismatic discoveries in modern history, and your life will be changed forever in ways you can barely imagine. The documented history of the known examples of this coin is fascinating and shrouded in some mystery because the mint has no official records of such an error being produced. The first known example surfaced in the early 1980s when a collector in the Midwest sent what he thought was an unusual proof penny to PCGS for evaluation. The experts who examined it were absolutely stunned by what they saw. Clear evidence of double denomination striking on a proof planchet, something they had never encountered before. After extensive testing and research, they authenticated it as genuine and assigned it a grade of proof, 65, and the discovery made headlines in the numismatic press. The coin was subsequently sold privately to a wealthy collector for what was then a record-breaking $28 million, and over the years, as its significance became more widely understood and as the coin market grew, its value increased dramatically. The most recent sale at $115 million represents not just the rarity of the coin, but also the maturation of the rare coin market and the willingness of ultra-wealthy collectors to pay premium prices for truly unique pieces. Whether a second example exists is a matter of debate in the numismatic community. Some experts believe that if two proof planchets were involved in this error, there should be two coins, but no second example has ever been authenticated, leading others to believe it's truly unique. The historical significance of 1963 adds profound meaning to this coin beyond just its error characteristics. This was the year of President Kennedy's assassination, a tragedy that marked the end of an era of American optimism and innocence. Kennedy was so beloved that within weeks of his death, plans were underway to honor him on the half dollar, which began production in 1964. Having a major mint error from 1963, just months before this world-changing event, connects this coin to a pivotal moment in history in a way that resonates with collectors and historians alike. The proof sets from 1963 were among the last to be produced before the mint temporarily suspended proof coin production in 1965 to 1967 due to the coin shortage crisis, making proof coins from 1963 historically significant in their own right. The fact that this double denomination error occurred on a proof planchet intended for collectors makes it all the more remarkable and mysterious. How did it happen? Who noticed it? How did it escape the mint? These questions may never be fully answered, but they add to the mystique and allure of this incredible coin. The technical aspects of how this error could have occurred are fascinating to consider. For a proof planchet to be struck by penny dies and then somehow end up in a quarter press requires multiple failures of protocol and procedure. Proof coins are produced in a separate area of the mint with stricter controls and oversight. So for a proof penny to end up in the regular production area, where quarters are struck, is highly unusual. Then, for that proof penny to be fed into the quarter press and struck again requires either mechanical failure, human error, or both. Some experts theorize that during the changeover between different denominations being struck on the same press line, the proof penny might have gotten stuck somewhere in the machinery and then been fed through when quarter production began. Others believe it might have been a deliberate experiment by a mint employee that somehow made it out of the facility. We may never know the exact circumstances, but what we do know is that the result is one of the most spectacular and valuable error coins ever created. So here's your final action plan. The ultimate treasure hunt strategy. First, if you have any 1963 pennies, especially proof pennies from 1963 proof sets, examine them very carefully. Look for any signs of overlapping designs, any indication that the coin might have been struck more than once, any unusual appearance whatsoever. Second, use high-powered magnification to examine every detail of both sides of the coin. Third, compare what you see to images of normal 1963 pennies and normal 1963 quarters to see if you can spot any design elements from the quarter appearing on your penny. Fourth, if you see anything unusual or suspicious, do not dismiss it. Document it with photographs, protect the coin, and contact professional grading services immediately. And finally, even if you don't find this specific ultra-rare double denomination proof error, remember that 1963 pennies can have other valuable varieties and errors, so every coin you examine carefully is a potential treasure. The beauty of coin collecting and coin hunting is that you never know what you might find until you look. Every single coin in your possession could potentially be worth far more than its face value. And the only way to discover hidden treasures is to educate yourself, stay observant, and examine your coins carefully. The stories we've shared throughout this video about people finding incredibly valuable coins in ordinary places, in inherited collections, in coin rolls from banks, in change from stores, in old jars forgotten in attics. These stories are all true, and they prove that anyone can make a life-changing discovery if they know what to look for. And now, as we come to the end of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever created, I want you to think about what you've learned today. We've covered 7 spectacular coins ranging in value from $38 million all the way up to $115 million, each one representing a unique combination of minting errors, historical significance, and extreme rarity that drives values into the stratosphere. We've learned about double die errors, triple die errors, wrong Planchet errors, Broadstrike errors, off-center strikes, transitional errors, and double denomination errors. And we've seen how these errors can transform an ordinary penny worth 1 cent into a treasure worth more than most people's houses, cars, and retirement savings combined. The key takeaways are these. Always examine your coins carefully, especially pennies from the years we've discussed. Learn to recognize the signs of valuable errors and varieties. When you find something unusual, don't dismiss it. Get it authenticated by professionals. And most importantly, never stop searching, because the next coin you pick up could be the one that changes your life forever. Thank you so much for staying with us through this entire video, for learning about these incredible coins, and for joining us here at Old Glory Coins, where we're passionate about helping people discover the hidden treasures in their pocket change. If you found this video helpful and exciting, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more amazing coin content, and share this video with your friends and family, because they might have these valuable coins too. Start checking your pennies today. Keep your eyes open for these incredible errors, and who knows, you might be the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar penny hiding in plain sight. Happy hunting, and may fortune smile upon your coin searches.